You chose authenticity over approval, and that single act disturbed something ancient within them. Most people spend their lives constructing masks, delicate and heavy at the same time, hoping the world will applaud the performance. But you did something different. You stood in your truth without theatrics. You did not bend your voice to match expectations. You did not reshape your desires to fit into someone else's comfort. And when a human being witnesses that kind of integrity, it does not simply impress them, it awakens them. They felt it the moment you stopped pretending. There was a quiet gravity around you, not loud, not desperate, not seeking validation, just present. And presence is rare. Presence is power. You may have thought you were simply being honest, simply expressing a boundary, simply refusing to play a game. But to them, it was a revelation, because deep inside, they have been longing to do the same. You became a mirror to the part of them they keep hidden. Understand this carefully. When someone falls intensely, irrationally, almost painfully in love, it is rarely about surface beauty or charming words. It is about recognition. It is about seeing a piece of their own disowned soul reflected in another person. You embodied something they have buried: courage, self-respect, emotional clarity. And when they saw you live it so effortlessly, something inside them trembled. They are not just in love with you. They are in love with the version of themselves they glimpse when they stand near you. You walked away instead of abandoning yourself. That is what changed everything. Most people, when faced with the threat of losing someone, will shrink. They negotiate their standards. They silence their needs. They trade authenticity for attachment. But you did not. When something felt wrong, you did not scream. You did not beg. You did not collapse. You simply stepped back. That step back was not weakness. It was psychological strength. And strength, especially quiet strength, is magnetic. When you withdrew your energy, you did not punish them. You revealed them to themselves. Suddenly, the space you once filled was empty. And in that emptiness they could hear their own thoughts. They could feel the absence of your warmth. They could see the contrast between your grounded presence and the chaos of their own indecision. Absence is a teacher. In your absence, they realized that you were not chasing, you were not clinging, you were not dependent. You were choosing, and being chosen by someone who does not need you is intoxicating, because it transforms love from survival into desire. They began to question themselves. Why does their silence feel heavier than my words? Why does their distance feel louder than my closeness? Why does the thought of losing them create a pressure in my chest that I cannot ignore? This is not simple infatuation. This is confrontation with the unconscious. You did not try to fix them. You did not attempt to rescue their wounds. You did not volunteer to become their therapist, their savior, their emotional caretaker. Instead, you held them accountable for their own growth, and that accountability forced them to confront their shadow, the insecure parts, the fearful parts, the parts that sabotage intimacy. Most people fall in love with comfort. They fell in love with challenge. You challenged them without aggression. You simply refused to tolerate less than mutual respect. And that refusal created tension inside them, because when someone meets a boundary, they must decide, grow or retreat. And in deciding to grow, they discovered how deeply they value you. There is something profoundly destabilizing about encountering the person who cannot be manipulated, not because they are cold, but because they are conscious. You observed patterns, you sensed inconsistencies, you responded with calm detachment rather than emotional chaos. That calmness unsettled them. They may have been used to drama equaling passion. They may have believed intensity meant screaming, chasing, crying, proving, but you demonstrated something else, intensity rooted in self-awareness. You felt deeply, but you did not drown. You cared, but you did not collapse. And so their mind replays you. the way you held eye contact without trying to dominate, the way you listened without interrupting, the way you expressed disappointment without humiliation. These are not dramatic gestures. They are psychological signals of maturity. And maturity, when encountered by someone still learning it, feels like standing in front of a mountain. They are climbing toward you emotionally. But here is the deeper truth. What they call love is also fear. Fear of losing access to the person who awakened their dormant self. Fear of returning to emotional numbness. Fear of going back to relationships that feel shallow compared to the depth they tasted with you. You made them feel seen, not in the superficial way, not compliments about appearance or talent, but seen in their contradictions. You sensed their confidence and their insecurity at the same time. You noticed their charm and their avoidance patterns. And instead of exposing them cruelly, you simply acknowledged reality. When a person feels psychologically understood, attachment forms quickly. You did not demand perfection. You demanded honesty. And honesty is terrifying for those who are accustomed to hiding. But it is also liberating. They are crazy in love because you represent freedom. Freedom from games. Freedom from guessing. Freedom from pretending. In your presence, they did not have to perform. They could drop the mask, even if only slightly. And once someone experiences that relief, they crave it. You may wonder why they hesitate, why they overthink, why they seem conflicted. It is because loving you requires transformation. You cannot be possessed casually. You cannot be kept in a half-hearted dynamic. To be with you fully, they must evolve. And evolution is uncomfortable. So they oscillate between desire and fear, between reaching out and pulling back, between imagining a future and doubting their worthiness of it. This internal tension is what makes their feelings intense. It is not calm admiration. It is psychological upheaval. You triggered growth. Growth feels like chaos before it feels like stability. They analyze your conversations long after they end. They recall the moment you chose silence instead of argument. They remember how you said, "I deserve clarity," without anger. That sentence echoes inside them because it forces them to confront whether they can provide that clarity. You did not chase reassurance. You embodied self-trust. Self-trust is seductive, not because it flatters ego, but because it feels safe. And safety is the deepest human desire. You created emotional safety not by promising never to leave, but by proving you would never betray yourself. That distinction matters. Someone who betrays themselves will eventually betray others, but someone who stands firmly in their own values becomes reliable, predictable in integrity, stable in emotion, and that stability is what their nervous system recognizes as home. They are not obsessed with your appearance alone. They are attached to your energy, the grounded tone of your voice, the calm rhythm of your breathing when conflict arises, the way you pause before responding instead of reacting impulsively. These subtle behaviors communicate psychological strength, and psychological strength inspires devotion. But there is urgency here, because when a person is confronted with their own awakening, they have two options: integrate the lesson or retreat into comfort. If they integrate it, they rise to meet you. If they retreat, they may attempt to suppress their feelings. That is why you must watch before it is too late, not because love is disappearing, but because timing shapes destiny. If they delay growth too long, fear may override desire, and if you underestimate your impact, you may walk away without understanding the depth of what you created. You shifted their internal world. Before you, love may have been entertainment. After you, love feels transformational. Before you, relationships may have been about validation. After you, relationships feel like mirrors, and mirrors are confronting. You revealed that love is not possession, but recognition, not control, but alignment, not drama, but depth. They are crazy in love because you refuse to play small. You expressed your dreams openly. You spoke about your standards without apology. You acknowledged your flaws without shame. This combination, humility and confidence, is rare. It disrupts shallow dynamics. They sense that being with you would require authenticity from them. And authenticity means shedding old defenses, shedding emotional immaturity, shedding patterns of avoidance. They are attracted not only to you, but to the challenge of becoming worthy of you. That is the paradox of powerful love. It is both comforting and demanding. It feels like home and like a mountain peak at the same time. You did not rescue them from loneliness. You exposed their loneliness. And in exposing it, you offered an alternative, conscious connection. Their heart beats faster when they imagine losing you, because losing you would mean returning to unconscious patterns, returning to relationships where they can hide. With you, hiding is impossible. You look beyond surface behavior. You sense intention. You ask direct questions, and you are not satisfied with half answers. This is why they feel intensity. Intensity is not always passion. Sometimes it is the friction between who they are and who they could become with you. You stand at the doorway of their evolution. They are crazy in love because you represent possibility, not fantasy. Possibility grounded in reality. You showed them what mature love could look like. And once someone glimpses mature love, they cannot fully enjoy immaturity again. The taste lingers. They may not say it directly, they may hide behind humor or pride, but internally they know you altered something fundamental. You made them aware of their own depth, and depth is addictive. When you spoke about your fears without dramatizing them, you modeled emotional regulation. When you admitted mistakes without collapsing into shame, you modeled self-compassion. When you set boundaries without hostility, you modeled self-respect. They are studying you subconsciously, learning from you, wanting to match you. But growth takes time, and love that demands growth feels urgent, because delay feels like loss. So understand your power. It was not a grand gesture that made them fall. It was your consistency, your calm detachment, your refusal to chase illusions, your willingness to walk away rather than compromise your core. You did not do this to manipulate. You did it to survive with dignity. And dignity is magnetic. Someone is crazy in love with you because you reminded them who they could be if they stopped hiding, because you refused to shrink, because you embodied integrity, because you stood firm when it would have been easier to beg. Watch carefully now, not with suspicion, but with awareness. See whether they rise toward your level of consciousness. See whether their actions align with their intensity. See whether their love transforms into commitment, because powerful connections do not fade quietly. They either evolve or fracture. And you are not here to fracture yourself for anyone.